Listen to your washing machine the next time it fills. Really listen to it. If you hear a hiss, a thin, straining whistle where there used to be a good, healthy rush of water, your machine is already dying. And it is not dying from age. It is dying from two little screens no bigger than your thumbnail, buried where the hoses meet the back of the machine, choked solid with a gray crust that costs about $3 to replace. I spent the better part of my working life pulling washers out of basements and laundry rooms and carrying them out to the curb. Good machines. Machines with 10 years still left in them. Machines a family had scraped and saved a whole year to buy. And more times than I want to sit here and admit to you, the only thing wrong with them was those two screens. $3. That is the entire distance between a working washer and a hunk of steel rusting at the dump. If you are new here, do yourself a favor and hit subscribe, because I show you these small fixes every single day. The ones nobody in the trade ever wanted said out loud. And before I go one step further, do me a kindness. Down in the comments, tell me how old your washer is and where in the world you are watching from. I read every one of them. I like knowing who is still out there fixing things instead of hauling them away. Now let me tell you who I am, so you know these are not just words. My name is Amos Bontrager. I was raised plain in a Mennonite farming community, back when a machine that broke was a machine you fixed, not a machine you replaced. We did not have the money to replace things, and more than that, we did not have the notion that you should. A thing was built to last, and if it stopped, you found out why. My father could keep a piece of equipment running for 30 years on nothing but attention and a little grease, and he considered a man who threw out something repairable to be a man who had lost his sense. I carried that into the repair trade when I left the farm. For years, I made my living driving from house to house with a toolbox, keeping people's machines alive. And I watched that whole world get squeezed out of existence. The big chains, the authorized-only service networks, the manufacturers who would rather sell you a new one than help you save the old one. The independent repairman, the fellow who would tell you the truth for the price of a coffee. They made him obsolete on purpose. So now I sit here and I tell you the things I used to tell my customers across the kitchen table, the things the service call is designed to keep you from ever learning. Here is the thing about that little screen. Every washing machine made in the last 50 years, top load or front load, fills with water through what is called the water inlet valve. It sits low on the back of the machine, and your two supply hoses, your hot and your cold, thread right into it. Inside that valve, right at the mouth where the hose connects, sits a small, round mesh screen, a filter. It is there to catch grit, sand, flecks of rust, little bits of mineral that come traveling down your pipes so they do not get inside the machine and gum up the works. It does its job quietly for years. Nobody thinks about it. Nobody has ever seen it. And that is exactly the problem. Because in most of this country, the water coming through those hoses is hard water. And hard water is the slow killer of every appliance you own. Let me put a number on that so you understand the size of it. More than 80% of American homes have hard water. 8 out of 10. If you have ever seen a chalky white crust build up on your shower head or a cloudy film on your drinking glasses out of the dishwasher, that is it. That is calcium and magnesium, dissolved minerals the water picks up traveling through soil and rock, and it does not just sit in the water and pass on through. It settles. It builds. And on a mesh screen the size of a dime, with water pushing through it a few dozen times a week, it builds up faster than anywhere else in the machine. Month by month, year by year, that mesh goes from open and clean to half blocked to choked nearly solid with hard gray scale. The water that used to pour through it now has to fight its way through, and your machine, which was built to fill in 3 or 4 minutes, starts taking 6, then 8, then 10. That hiss you hear is water squeezing through a screen that is almost closed. And I will tell you a little secret the trade knows and does not share. It is almost always the hot side that goes first. You want to know why? Because your water heater sits there all day cooking sediment loose off its own tank walls and sending it down the hot line straight into that screen. So the hot inlet clogs faster than the cold nearly every time. When somebody tells me their machine fills fine on cold but crawls on hot, I know before I ever touch it exactly what I am going to find: a screen packed with rust in line. I have pulled screens out of 10-year-old machines that you could not see daylight through. Held one up to a window once, and it was just a solid gray coin, not a hole left in it. And understand, that screen is only the first place the hard water shows its hand. The same minerals that choke the mesh are coating everything downstream of it too: the hoses, the seals, the inside of the drum. The studies on this are not kind. A washer run on hard water wears out as much as 30% faster than the same machine run on soft water. 30%. That is 3 years or more shaved clean off the life of a machine you paid good money for, and most people never once connected to the water. They just figure the machine wore out, the way machines do. But it did not wear out. It was worn out, quietly, by the water and by the fact that nobody ever told them the first line of defense was a $3 screen they could have kept clear the whole time. Now here is where the quiet injustice comes in, and I want you to follow this all the way through, because this is the part that turns a $3 screen into a $700 disaster. When that screen clogs and the water can barely get through, the machine does not just fill slow and leave it there. The inlet valve, that electric part the hose screws into, it has a little solenoid inside it, a coil that opens the valve every time the machine calls for water. That coil is now working against a wall. It is straining to pull water through a screen that will not let it. It runs longer, it runs hotter, and an electrical coil that runs hot for years does one thing eventually: it burns out. Now your machine will not fill at all. Dead. And the cascade does not even stop there, because a machine that fills wrong and drains slow throws off the whole balance of the cycle, and the pump and the motor start working harder to make up for it, and they wear before their time too. One little screen, $3, clogged with lime, and it takes the whole machine down with it like a rot spreading through good wood. So what happens next in most houses in America? You call somebody. The washer will not fill, or it is taking 45 minutes to do what it used to do in 15, and you call for a repair. And here is what that costs. A service call to just get a technician through your door runs $175 on average before he has done a thing. If he tells you the inlet valve is burned out, and by now it usually is, that valve is another $75 to $125 in parts and labor. And plenty of times, if the machine is more than a few years old, he will look at it and shake his head and tell you it is not worth fixing, and steer you toward a whole new machine. $700, $1,000, more, for a machine that started dying from a screen you could have replaced for the price of a loaf of bread. I sat in a lot of laundry rooms over the years, and I watched people's faces when they heard the number. Good people, people on a fixed income who did not have that money to spare.
And the thing that has stayed with me all these years, the thing I cannot let go of, is that most of the time it never had to get that far. Because appliance technicians, the honest ones, will tell you this straight if you ask them. Something like 90% of slow-filling washers, 9 out of every 10, come down to nothing more than a clogged inlet screen. 90%. That is not my opinion, that is the men who fix these things for a living. The screen is the first thing they check, or it should be, because it is almost always the answer. And it is the cheapest, simplest fix in the entire machine. So the question that ought to bother you, the same way it bothers me, is this. If 9 out of 10 of these problems are a $3 screen, why has nobody ever taught you to look? Why is there no light on the panel, no line in the manual you actually read, no word from the fellow
who sold it to you? I will let you sit with that answer yourself, but I think you already know it. A screen you replace yourself is a service call nobody gets to bill you for. All right, let me show you how to do this, because it is genuinely one of the easiest jobs there is, and I promise you, if you can thread a garden hose, you can do this. And I want to be clear about something, the way I am always clear. This is a safe job. We are not touching any wiring. We are not going anywhere near anything electrical. No capacitors, no motor, nothing that can hurt you. All we are dealing with is 2 water hoses and 2 little screens. That is the whole job. If a fix ever takes you into the wiring or the guts of the motor, that is where you stop and call a professional. And I will always tell you when that line is. This is not that. This is hoses and screens. First thing, unplug the machine. Just pull the plug from the wall. We are not going to be working on anything live, but you unplug it anyway because that is how you were taught to respect a machine. Then reach behind and shut off both water valves, the hot and the cold, the 2 little handles or levers on the wall where your hoses come out. Turn them all the way off. Now take a towel and lay it down under the connections, because there is always a little water left in those hoses and it is going to run out on you. Now unscrew both hoses from the back of the machine, just the machine end, where they thread into that inlet valve. You can usually do it by hand, and if they are stiff, a pair of pliers, gentle. Have your towel ready, let them drain into a bucket or a pan. Now look right into the openings where those hoses just came off. You will see the screens, little round mesh caps, recessed just inside the ports. On most machines, they are a slightly domed disc of fine metal or plastic mesh. Take a pair of needle nose pliers and grip the little lip of the screen and pull it straight out. Gentle, do not force it. It will come. And when you get it out and hold it up to the light, I would bet money on what you are going to see. Gray, crusted, half of it or more choked with scale and sand and little orange flecks of rust. That is your slow fill. That right there is the thing that has been strangling your machine. Now, here is where I part ways with some of the advice you will find out there, and I want you to hear me on this. A lot of folks will tell you to just clean the old screen off, soak it in vinegar, scrub it with a toothbrush, and put it back. And you can do that. It will work for a while. But I am telling you as a man who did this for a living, once a screen has been clogged that hard, once that mesh has been packed and scaled for years, it never comes fully clean, and it clogs again twice as fast. The mesh is damaged, so do it right and do it once. You buy new screens. And here is the beautiful part. A pack of replacement washer inlet screens, and they make them universal to fit nearly every machine out there, runs you about $3. $3 for the pack, and you usually get several. So you swap the old dead screens for fresh ones, seat them right back into the ports the way they came out, mesh facing out toward the hose, press them in flush. I will put the part you want and a link down in the description so you are not guessing at the store. Then you just reverse everything. Thread your hoses back on, hand tight, and then a gentle quarter turn with the pliers. Do not crank on them and crack anything. Turn your 2 water valves back on. Watch the connections for a few seconds to make sure you are not weeping any water. Plug the machine back in and run it, just an empty rinse cycle, and stand there and listen. That hiss is gone. That water is going to come rushing in the way it did the day the machine was new. The whole job, start to finish, is 15 minutes, and most of that is finding your pliers. And you do it once a year. That is the whole discipline. Once a year, before there is a problem, you pull those screens and you look. Because a screen you swap while it is only half clogged never gets the chance to burn out your valve and kill your machine. Now I want to tell you about a machine that has stayed in my mind for probably 20 years, because it is the proof of everything I am telling you. There was a woman I did work for, out past Millersburg, an older widow named Rebecca who kept a plain house and had been running the same top-load washer since sometime in the early 1980s. Her husband had bought it, and after he passed, she kept it going because that is what you did. When I first came out to her place, she told me the fellow before me, some fellow from a chain, had told her the machine was on its last legs and she ought to just replace it. She did not have the money to replace it, and she did not believe him besides. So I pulled the screens, and they were the worst I had ever seen, solid, and I swapped them, cleaned her drain filter while I was at it, and that machine filled like a fire hose. She used that washer another 15 years. It outlived 2 of the shiny new machines her neighbors bought in the meantime. When she finally did let it go, it was well past 30 years old, and it still worked. She just wanted something with a bigger drum. 30 years, on a machine a man had condemned, saved by a woman who understood the one thing this whole country has been trained to forget. You take care of the small thing, and the big thing takes care of itself. That is not a trick I invented. That is just how the people I come from have always lived. And it is a kind of quiet wealth most folks these days have never once tasted. Now, while you have got that machine pulled out, and you are already back there, let me give you the companion to this, the second little fix that goes hand in hand with the first, because these 2 together are what actually buy you that decade. If you have a front-load machine, or one of the newer high-efficiency top-loaders, you have got another filter you have almost certainly never touched. It is called the drain pump filter. Some folks call it the coin trap. It is down low on the front of the machine, usually behind a little pop-open door or a snap-off panel at the bottom corner. And its job is to catch everything that goes down the drain that shouldn't. Lint by the fistful, coins, buttons, hairpins, a child's little sock. All of it collects in there, and if you never clean it out, it packs up solid. And just like the inlet screen, it puts your drain pump under a strain it was never meant to carry. And that pump burns out. That is another repair people pay $200 for that they never needed. So you open that little door, you put a shallow pan and a towel down because water is going to come out.
You unscrew the cap slow and let it drain, and you pull out the filter and clean the mess out of it. Do that every few months. It takes 10 minutes and it saves you a pump. The inlet screens on the back, the drain filter on the front. Those two habits, a screen swap once a year and a drain clean-out a few times a year, that is the whole secret to a washer that runs past 20 years while your neighbor is on his third machine. I think about the trade I came up in a lot these days. The independent repairman is nearly gone now, and it was not an accident that he went. When I was young, there was a fellow in every town who could fix anything you brought him, and he would tell you the truth. And half the time, he would tell you the fix was so small you could do it yourself and not charge you at all. That man was bad for business. Bad for the chains, bad for the manufacturers who make more money selling you a new machine every 7 years than a machine that lasts you 30. So the whole world got quietly rearranged around replacement instead of repair. The machines got harder to open. The manuals got thinner. The word went out, so soft you never even heard it, that you are not the kind of person who fixes things, that you should not try, that you should call somebody or just buy a new one. And a whole generation believed it. But it is not true. It was never true. You come from people who fixed things, every last one of you, if you go back far enough. That knowledge is not gone. It has just been sitting on a shelf gathering dust, the same way that screen sat clogged in the back of your machine, waiting for somebody to reach in and clear it. So that is the fix. A $3 screen, 15 minutes, once a year, and a drain filter you keep an eye on. And you will get years and years out of a machine everybody else would have thrown away. Go do it this weekend. And when you do, come back and tell me down in the comments what you found in those screens. Because I promise you, it is going to be worse than you think, and I want to hear about it. Tell me the brand of your machine and how old it is too, because
building a picture of what lasts and what doesn't across all of you, and your machine is part of that record. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, the small, honest fixes the service call was built to hide from you, then subscribe and stay with me, because I put one of these out every single day. Next time, I am going to show you the rubber door seal on a front-load washer, the one that turns black and moldy and makes your whole laundry room smell, and the 30-cent habit that keeps it clean for the life of the machine without a single special product. You are going to want that one. I'm Amos Bontrager. Thank you for listening to Old Timer Appliance Resurrection.